Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kim and today I'm bringing you my weekly reading wrap-up of all the books that I've read, am still reading, and what I would like to dive into after I finish some of the ones that I'm currently working on. And also with this video I'm also doing a couple of DNFs from the last month or so of the ones that I just couldn't get into for whatever reason. So we're going to put that at the beginning of the video and then we'll get into the normal routine. Alright, so let us get started. The first one, this was Supernaturals. They were short stories. It was edited by Joshua Perry. There are many different authors and short stories in here, so a huge compilation of them. I read the first two, or at least I attempted the first two stories out of here, and I just could not get into it. The first story, The Yellow Wallpaper, it absolutely made no sense whatsoever. It was not sure where the author was trying to get, other than she was losing her mind possibly, or the husband was poisoning her possibly. I'm not exactly sure. Like I said, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. And then the second story, The Vampire, it was so long and drawn out. It was very old world style of writing. It was kind of very dry. I don't even think I got halfway through it, because it's spent all this time on building up like the history of vampires and vampirism, and I don't even know where the story was actually beginning. If it was truly even beginning, it lost my interest very early on. So this one, unfortunately, and I was so looking forward to this because I love supernatural stuff, I love ghosts, I love vampires, but the style of writing just didn't jive with me. So that was the first one that I DNF'd. This was my buddy read, The Realm Breaker by Victoria Aveyard. I love this cover. It is absolutely gorgeous. The synopsis was, something that I would be very interested in, but the execution of the story was my problem. I got about 150 pages in. I think that was in around chapter 8. I didn't finish chapter 8, so right now I'm currently DNFing this for now, but I'm not decluttering it from my collection. The other book I will be, because it just is not jiving with me. Just the style of writing on that one. This one I'll give one more opportunity to a little bit later and see, once I get through some of my other fantasy books, if this one will make more sense later. So DNFing for now. We'll pick it up in a few months. Alright, let's get into my next section of the things that I did finish and I completed. The first one, this was a buddy read. I did finish it. This is The Truth Witch by Susan Dennard. This is the Witchlands novel, the first one in at least the trilogy, if not series. I'm not exactly sure how many books will be in it, if it's just going to be a straight trilogy. Let me know in the comments down below if you know if it's a trilogy or if it's going to go on into a more lengthy series. But this, again, I really enjoy this. You're following Safi and Isolde and them discovering what's going on, why Safi is the Truth Witch, Isolde is a Thread Witch, so the Truth Witch can know if you're telling the truth or not. Isolde's threads, you can see what people are feeling and those types of things. So you're following their adventure. Enters Merrick, who is from the Brevna. The 20-year peace agreement or treaty is coming to an end. It's all taking place around that time. They do depart from the kingdom of Kartora, I believe it is, and it's their adventure going through. And then in the final battle, something happens that separates Isolde from Sophia, and that is kind of how the book ends, so I can't wait to dive into book number 2. This one I gave a 4-star rating. Not the best fantasy that I've ever read, but it is up there. So that one I did complete. The next book that I finished, this was Vicious by Kevin O'Brien. I absolutely love this book. He's now one of my favorite authors, or at least will be another author I'm going to get more books from and possibly will become a favorite author. This is following a serial killer who targets young mothers or mothers of young boys. They range from infants all the way up to, I believe, 14, 15, 16, somewhere around in there. He goes dormant for a while and then it picks back up. Wow. his writing style pulls me in so much. I was on the seat of my pants. I couldn't wait to see what was going to go on next. I had other books that I had to read, so it did take some time away from this one, but once I got some of those done, I dived in and I didn't want to put it down at all. Oh wow, a lot of things that happen. You know, you're constantly saying, okay, is it this person? Is it this person? No, possibly, could it? Yeah, he did a phenomenal job with this book. So definitely highly recommend it if you are into kind of horror, serial killer, that type of book. I think you might enjoy this one. Very well written. Could not really pinpoint who it really was. He did a great job on it. Highly, highly recommend. That was a 5-star if you did not know that. 5-star rating. The first one is Charlotte's Journey. This is a historical romance. Again, I have not read historical romance in quite a long time. I ended up giving Charlotte's Journey a 3-star rating. There were a lot of errors in this book, and I'm not sure if this was a draft because I know there were some issues when the author was trying to send it to me as an e-copy. So I'm not sure about that, but it was throughout the whole book and not just the section that she had mentioned. So I'm thinking it was the final copy, but there were still a lot of grammatical errors. A lot of the characters I don't think were as well developed as they could have been. To me, it felt like a surface story, like you got just the surface material and not really an in-depth feel for the book and the characters and their emotional states and why they were doing the things that they were doing. It did span a pretty significant amount of time, and this one particular scene at the beginning of the book I thought was a rape scene, but that's how it kind of played out. But later on it was more of just a molestation of her. So I don't know if the author pulled back from it, but the two didn't really jive together, didn't flow together, and that she ends up with the man that kind of molested her or possibly or raped, depending on where the author was really going with that scenario. I didn't feel like that was something that could have happened, that she forgave him so easily. So I don't know. It was very weird. So there's just a lot of things that didn't make a lot of emotional sense, logical sense in it. And then also another 2 characters, one was a child and another was definitely an adult male, and they end up together at the end. So it's just, I know the time period that there is a discrepancy in ages, but that seemed even more advanced. Charlotte didn't end up the person that I thought she would have based on the interactions throughout the book. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. It has potential. It was, like I told the author, it had a potential to be really good, but it just fell flat in some key areas for me. So I ended up giving it a 3. I really wanted to give it a 2.5, but of course Goodreads won't let you do that, so I bumped it to a 3. Again, this is my first reading of Lori Angel, so I'm not sure if I would continue based off of this first work. So the last book that I managed to read this week, this was the second author's request. This was Search for Synergy. This is a middle grades fantasy book. I haven't read middle grade books in quite a long time. Search for Synergy, it deals with 2 young boys. They are in, I believe, 8th grade, so about 12, 13 years old. One discovers that he is a dragon in human form, and the other is supposed to be his knight, and they have to come together to figure out how to release his dragon so he can shapeshift into this dragon. And they are, to work together to fight off, of course, the great evil that is trying to invade the world. You're following these 2 boys and another kind of creepy librarian. I want more as an adult reading this fantasy middle grades book. I wanted more depth because I'm used to reading, YA to adult fantasy. So I'm wanting more, but the book makes sense to the audience, the depth that has gone into. So I can see why, and that's why I gave it a 4-star rating. It is really good for the target audience. There's a lot of action going on in the book as they are working together, because they are kind of from 2 different social groups in their school, and now they're working together. I wanted more about that bond in school as well, because that's a little bit more surfacey than, you know, more in-depth. But overall, I really enjoyed this book. Like I said, I gave it a 4-star rating. I would consider reading more if the author reaches out to me, who is Brett Salter, if I didn't tell you that earlier. So yeah, I really did enjoy it and how they come together. There was a lot of humor going on in the book, a lot of sarcasm, as these two, again, come together, learn each other. Their friendship and bond is growing. So it was a great first book in this trilogy, I think it is. So yeah, so that is the last book that I managed to read this last week. So let's get on into the books that I did pick up as I finished these books. When She Returned, and again I'll have it up on the screen. This is by Lucinda Berry. If you've watched some of my past book reviews, this is the same author who wrote The Perfect Child. So I know going into this one that she does a lot of psychological things and makes you think about things, have a lot of mind impact, makes me think about things. So it's been a year or two since I last read a book of hers, because it just took me some time to process everything and be emotionally ready for another book of hers. So this book follows a woman who has disappeared. We don't know if she has been kidnapped, did she leave on her own, but she disappeared. And now we're into the present. She returns, she has a baby, she looks like she has been used roughly, to put it mildly. So there's been some type of abuse done to her. So you're following them, trying to figure out what went wrong, where she was, how'd she end up with a baby, why is she in the condition that she currently is in. Her husband is now remarried, and then their child is now, that they had previously, is now a teenager. So she was about 5 when the mother disappeared. So that's the premises of the book, and trying to figure out everything. So it is fascinating. I love her writing. It's easy to read. She does go back and forth with this particular book, from the present to the past, and that she's doing it in a very seamless manner. You know where you're at in the timeline, and I do appreciate that when authors do that, so you're not having to guess which timeline am I following. So I'm really enjoying it. It's not an extremely long book, so I do believe I can finish it out this upcoming week. Alright, on to my physical books. So I did pick up The Prince of Thorns. This is by Mark Lawrence. This is the first book in this series. This is a dark fantasy book. The main character, he is a prince, but he has chosen to leave the castle on a revenge for the death of his mother and little brother. And he's not a very nice young man at all. I think he's around 13, 14 years old. I think it's marketed as a YA book, but I would think it's more of an adult, or at least a new adult. But that's just me, just with the nature of the things that are going on in this particular book. But I am enjoying my read. I've read the first 12 chapters, so I'm enjoying it. It's going fairly well. The writing style is fairly easy to follow. The chapters are, most of them are shorter. Some are a little bit longer than others, but the pacing overall is decent. The next book that I have picked up also this week, this is The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher. This is a horror book, adult book. You're following the character Mouse. She has been asked by her ailing father to clean out the grandmother's house. The grandmother has since passed on. Her grandmother was a hoarder. She's having to go through all of these stacks of stuff. It's pretty packed house. And then she happens to discover her step-grandfather's diary or journal, and he's written some very demented things in it, and then now she's starting to experience some of them, and it has some creepy moments. These stones are very bizarre, and things are starting to ramp up, so yeah, I can't wait for it to really fully take off, because I think it's going to be some creepy things happening in this book, or at least that is my hope. So pretty decent horror book so far. The next one I also picked up, this was Graceling by Kristen Cashore. Again, this is a more or less displaced princess. Her uncle is raising her and basically using her for her gift, which they're called Grace. The kind of the magic idea behind this book is that people, if you are blessed / cursed with a grace, it could be pretty much anything. Hers happens to be killing, and her uncle takes full advantage of that, sends her out to do all the dirty work. So she is kind of in a resistance group that is trying to lessen the impact of all of the kings in this area, in this kingdom, who are very cruel and manipulative and just brutal to their people. So she and a group of people are trying to help alleviate some of that and get some of these innocent people away so that they are not being tortured and killed for the smallest things. Okay, so yeah, I can't wait to fully dive into it. Again, I've gotten about 5 chapters read. I felt a little bit flat yesterday with my reading, but still it's very interesting and I can't wait to see what goes on further. Loving my books that I picked up this week. Alright, so the last physical book that I am reading as well is The Snakes by Sadie Jones. This one is kind of a mystery thriller-esque type book. You're following this couple. They are having some kind of marital issues. She is a psychologist or works in therapy with different people. Her husband is an artist who's not able to put forth his full effort into his art. His day job is a real estate agent. He is not happy doing that, very resentful about it. So they're having a lot of conflict with that. They decide to go on holiday. They have somebody to come in and rent their flat. So I believe this may be in England, somewhere in Europe of that nature. I don't remember if it specifically said that, where it was, their locale was. But so they go on vacation and then some things fall through. They're visiting her brother who owns this hotel, or basically their father owns the hotel and he's sort of renovating it. And there's a lot of family tension going on between the brother, the sister, and dealing with their parents. So it is a lot to take in. I've only gotten 4 chapters read out of this book, so a lot has happened in those 4 chapters. A lot of good setup has happened, and so I can't wait to see where this book takes off to and what family drama and family secrets get told. And then the very last book that I have picked up, I'm listening to it as an audiobook. This is Brandon Sanderson's Oathbringer. This is the 3rd book in the Stormlight, I believe, Archives series. So I have this one and then Rhythm of War I want to do. So I'm listening to this big chunk of a book on audio when I'm going around town and going. Now that work is starting up again, I'll get a lot read during that, but I am in chapter 7 so far, and I've only been listening to it for a few days, so it is going by fairly quickly. I love his style of writing. He pulls you in, so I cannot wait to see what this 3rd book has in store for me, because the desolation has come in the last book. The Parshmen are being converted to their original state and are Voidbringers, I believe is what they're termed as being. So I cannot wait to continue this series that I started about a year and a half ago. So yeah, so those are what I am currently reading. And my last section, that if I get some of these read, and I should at least get 1, possibly 2 of them read, I got a couple of books to take their place and go into the flip. So the first book that I will pick up is The 3 Dark Crowns. This is dealing with a pretty dark world, it sounds like. Triplets are born into the kingdom to the royal family, and then they each have a type of elemental power or power over something, and then they have to battle it out to see who becomes the queen of the kingdom. And again, it's not just a duel to see who wins, it's a duel to the death. So they battle it out till there's only one surviving heir out of the triplets. So it's a very dark sounding world. Cannot wait to dive in and see what happens in this series. And then the last book that I will pick up this week, if I get enough of the others read, I didn't tell you who the author of this one was. The Three Dark Crowns is Kendar Blake is the author. Alright, so the last book, this is The Kiss of Deception. This is by Mary E. Pearson. Again, this is the start of a series. So this one, it starts off with her being married and she flees before it actually takes place. She loses herself in the kingdom on the far side in some village, and things are going on. People are trying to find her to make the political alliances. So yeah, so trying to escape destiny, but still a strong, dominant type of character. Cannot wait to get into this one as well. Alright, so these are all the books that I've DNF'd, that I've read and finished this last week, what I'm currently reading, and what I'd like to pick up when I finish some of my other books this upcoming week. So leave me comments down below. Have you read any of these? What did you think of them? What books do you think you might pick up? All of those good things. So leave me those comments down below. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. And until my next one, I hope you have a great one. Bye guys.